Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Denver, Colorado, it's time for Franchise Bible Coach Radio. Now, here are your hosts.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Franchise Bible Coach Radio podcast with Rick and Rob. I'm Rick Grossman, and I'll be your co-host today, along with my co-host, Rob Ganley. And I'll introduce him in just a second, and he will introduce our special guest today, David Graham from Code Ninjas. He's the founder of Code Ninjas, and he's joining us from his headquarters in Houston, Texas today, and has some exciting insights for us on their fast-growing franchise that they have created. So, folks, we're at the kind of the tail end of the Fight for Your Franchise Challenge. And we just want to say a big thank you to everybody that participated, and that goes for franchisors, franchise owners, and all the vendors and suppliers, and of course our sponsors that Rob will tell us about here in a second. And a special thanks out to Entrepreneur Magazine and Entrepreneur.com for supporting the franchise industry and helping us spread the word for this great initiative. So at the tail end of this initiative, folks, don't fret. It's not the end of the road. We do have some options for people to continue to participate with our Facebook group, and you can do that for free. And then we also have a new membership that we're excited to offer franchisors and franchisees to participate and continue to get some coaching and some resources and some good things, as well as sharing their insights and thoughts and questions with the industry that we love. So I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show, but with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rob so he can introduce our special guest. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rick. It's good to be here. And yeah, I want to thank our sponsor real quick, SEO Samba. They're the creator of a one-of-a-kind, award-winning platform called the Franchise Marketing Operating System. And you can learn more at SEOsamba.com. And with that said, David, it's great to have you on the show. David Graham, CEO, founder of Code Ninjas. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Well, so one of the first things we like to start with is it's an easy one, David. It's kind of stems from your passion, right? So how did you wind up where you are today? Tell us a little bit about your brand, how you started it, and who you serve.
Sure, that is a pretty softball. Thank you for that. The brand started kind of in the back of my mind as I was watching my kids in Taekwondo class. We were teaching adults how to code at the time in one of these 9-week boot camp style things, and they had 9 Taekwondo belts on the wall. And we were, and I had the number 9 floating around. You know how entrepreneurs get stuck on certain topics and ideas, and that was mine for the week. Is like, how can we build this kind of message and brand around 9 weeks of teaching adults how to code? And then I thought, well, maybe we'll do the belt system for adults. And then, after just thinking about it, like adults don't really care about that. But maybe kids would, kids, I'm seeing all these kids having a great time and they love these achievements and milestones. And that kind of got the idea brewing, let's say. Fast forward about 3 years after I'd sold that company, we did like all good entrepreneurial groups and took 2 weeks off, 2 solid weeks spent with the family, and then started Code Ninjas. We didn't waste any time whatsoever. Moved right into it. At first, we didn't know exactly what we wanted to do, but how we wanted to implement it or what our message and brand would be. But now we've really honed in on the idea that kids have fun and parents see results. We love that kind of concept so much. We wrote it on the wall of every single one of our centers. And that basic premise is filling the want of the kids to build their own video games and the need of the parents that say that they want their kids to know this coding education, which is going to be so pivotal for the future. I don't know if you know this, but something like 50 to 60% of the jobs that these kids today will have in 2035, they don't even exist yet. We don't even have a title for what to call them yet. And so what we're really doing here is preparing kids for a future that is unknown. And the only way to do that is to teach kids how to think. And so at the premise of everything we do, we're teaching kids how to be problem solvers, how to think through a problem. And we're using code and video games as an excuse to get them there.
That's amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it is quite brilliant, especially when you think about where we are in terms of the technology evolution, exponential growth or change ahead with technology, right? And then you nailed it. You hit it right on the head. It's not about what is today. It's about being able to move with the changes of the future, which will be so technology driven. So that the idea of helping them think, you got me with that. And having two kids that spend about 10 years in martial arts as kids, I totally relate to everything you just said. So, and I know Rick does too, because he's a black belt, right? And one of the so,
yeah, I don't talk about it much, but no, I love it. I love the fact that you can rank up and you can, kind of gain the information. Well, I love drawing the kids in with the coding. I know that my teenage son is all about video games, and that would be a great way to get him to learn some new skills.
Sure. Yeah, they're all about the games, right? I mean, so anything we can do to engage them at their level and make sure that they're excited to keep coming back. I mean, that's a business model you can build on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and David, tell us more about how you guys have been kind of working through this new normal. We started the Fight for Your Franchise Challenge 3 months ago to kind of help franchisors and franchise owners get through this time, because we knew it was going to be rough. And, we're happy to say that we're 3 months into it, and we're kind of coming to the end of the Fight for Your Franchise Challenge initiative, and have had hundreds of franchisors and franchisees participate, and lots of good stories of them innovating and coming through this time. So as a brand, how have you guys worked through this COVID-19 situation, and how have you innovated and adapted?
Yeah, so it's other than the obvious things like staff working from home and having the ability for virtual camps at our centers, I think we had to relate to our franchisee situations more than ever, showing some empathy and bringing in a new normal that we live with, this uncertainty that we're all very aware of, but nobody really wants to talk about it all the time. So, one of the best things we as a franchisor can do is effectively communicate our new strategies, but then also be quick to change those strategies, especially when something is so ephemeral, we don't know what's coming. We have to be able to quick change and make sure that we make course adjustments if something isn't working, or if it is working, and we do more of it if it is and do less of it if it isn't. And then communicating that across the board is so important. And so I think that's our new normal for the next 6 or 7 months for sure. Just keep course corrections, giving more tools for communication, and broadening our base. We're very fortunate because what we do can be done online. A lot of franchisors I know and franchisees just don't have that luxury.
Yeah. Well, and tell the audience a little bit more about your model, as far as you have a brick-and-mortar model. Yeah,
we do. We have a brick-and-mortar, something around 250 brick-and-mortar locations in 3 countries, and we're in the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. So that was, the biggest part of our expense base is our retail space. It's we try to get in prime grade A retail. So the fact that we're not using it and not drawing people in and getting leads and customers through that space was concerning, to say the least, to our franchisees. So we had to switch to a virtual model, give them the tools, training, expertise on how to implement that properly, so that we continue that experience. We're sitting here in a virtual setting right now, but I don't think that it would still be it's not the same as sitting in a room together if we were talking. And just the same experience that we want to have our kids every single time they come into a Code Ninjas, it's really hard to convey that same experience online. But there's some tricks that we can do. There's little things we can do to make it more fun, to make sure that they stay engaged. They don't go, chasing squirrels or shiny things, like kids do. It's easy for them to get distracted. And so what can we do to really hyper focus them on the engagement level and make sure it stays fun for everybody? And so that's what we did. It wasn't easy. We had to have many all-nighters, with the education team pulling it together at the last second sometimes, and then sometimes we did some things that weren't perfect, but we did what we had to do. And our franchisees, I got to say, give them all the credit, really. not all, but a lot of credit. They stepped up and helped out where their expertise came in invaluable as educators and technologists, which are a large portion of our franchisee base. They stepped up and helped the community as a whole as well.
Wonderful.
Well, and that's when I'm thinking about those numbers you shared. It's quite a few franchisees. And
Yeah.
How did you manage your leadership style and communications and through this last few months? And did you get some input from the franchisees? Like, how do you manage all that back and forth? I'm sure there's a lot of great ideas and thoughts. And
yeah. So if you've been a franchisor or a franchisee, you know that you ask 2 franchisees and you get 3 opinions. Somehow, there's never a lack of ideas, right? It's always, and that's great, but it's also daunting to have like this influx of opinion all the time. And so we did have to set up new channels to communicate. The leadership style that I typically, kind of just drive to is a little more strict, a little more authoritarian of sorts. Yeah. So I had to practice myself at being a little better listener, like keep my mouth shut and listen like my mom taught me, right? And through this experience, it really has taught me how to be a better leader and listen to what our franchisees need and being adaptive to what we think they need may not always be in the same level of experience. And so I typically, for example, would never just jump on the call. I mean, I'm the CEO. I'm usually working on the vision of the company. But in this particular environment, I jumped in the calls. I got on support tickets. I made sure to get in and talk to and break down any red tape that I possibly could through the process, because this isn't a time for bureaucracies to slow down process. This is a time to all hands on deck, jump in there and make sure it gets done. And so leadership styles have to change and adapt to the circumstances. We can certainly go back, after things calm down a little bit, if that's the way we want to go back to doing it. But I think this is also a great time to have a reawakening. The idea of what you were doing before and you did it right and you just thought you did it right. This is one of those kind of times where you can break the eggs to make the cake, right? And take the preconceived notions that you thought were the perfect thing and say, is that really the best way to do this? And so I think we're doing a lot of that too. And that's successful leadership to me too, is to be okay with saying, maybe I'm not the right person to be doing all these things all the time. And maybe I need to change the way I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think you're right that that when you're busy and money's coming in and you have, lots of stuff of the day that keeps you busy and occupied, it's easy to just kind of put your head down and keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. And I'm talking to the franchisors as well as the franchise owners and their managers and staff members too, that you kind of just function, right? As I said at the beginning of this initiative, it's like we're busy, but then it's like the entire world went off the cliff at the same time overnight. And so things changed. And what we've been encouraging people to do throughout the initiative is to kind of evaluate, create a plan, take this time to pump the brakes, get in, dig in, and make sure that you are able to be at the highest and most efficient level, or what we call the zenith level, in all departments. You break your business down by departments, and we look at that. And we ended with leadership on purpose, David, because we wanted everybody to think about the most important factor in their business, which is their leadership. And as I often say, you can have a great business model and have mediocre leadership or the wrong leader, and it could suffer.
Sure. You gotta, as the founders, sometimes we don't want to know our baby is ugly, right. And I think we get like these rose-colored glasses, look at me, what great thing that I built kind of mentality. It's not ego all the time. Sometimes it's just like pride a little bit.
Yep.
And sometimes you need to step back and say, especially in a crisis situation, am I the right person to drive this new growth strategy? You got to reset. Yeah. Evaluate your skills and what you're good at, and then say, do those skills align with what the company still needs? And if that's no, then you got to find somebody else. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to do. And
that's a great point.
Real hard to hand off. And so when we kind of did that, in a way, with our our new studio model. You know, we were doing these brick and mortar centers for a long time, as we discussed earlier. That was certainly something that was very successful. Wide, obviously, we grew 600 and plus units over a little over 4 years, a little under 3 years, excuse me. You don't do that unless it's a viable model, right? But coming out of COVID, we thought about what are our potential new franchisees going to have? What are the hurdles they're going to have to overcome? Are they going to have the same amount of money available? IRAs tanked. All these different financial instruments are going to drying up in certain areas. How are we going to get them financing for what they need to do? And how are we going to get them over their own risk tolerances for doing it? So asking somebody pre-COVID for a $250,000 to $300,000 investment, pretty practical. We proved that. Asking somebody post-COVID for a $250,000 to $300,000 investment, much harder. Just right. The situation has changed the game. And so now what we've done is we said, okay, studio model is going to have all the successful parts and pieces for the centers, except as long as you go 20-minute drive away from any of our existing centers or territories that we've sold, we'll let you set up a studio model, and that can be in a secondary space. So a church, a college, an existing private or public school, anywhere you can rent a room that's dedicated to you, and you can put it in there and make it like a dojo, like it's in all of our centers. We want it to still be branded. We still want to have that experience for the students. If you can come do that, then not only will we let you get up for a reduced franchise fee because we want to get the costs lower, but if you are already one of our franchisees, we're waiving the franchise fee. We're waiving a lot of the upfront costs and requirements, letting you move some of your furniture, materials, and things into your new studio to get open faster and broaden your base of customers. So we gave every single one of our units that was already open a free studio. Just go and open it and do it. And that was the only reason to do that, is to help our franchisees increase their customer base in such a perilous time for their organization.
Wow, that's a great innovation at a time when they really needed a boost. So
yeah, well, we hope so. And a lot of them took, almost 100 of our franchisees took us up on that.
But that's great to hear because, as you said, and one of my follow-up questions was to ask you a little bit about your thoughts about franchise development and future. You guys have, I don't know what kind of record that must be, Rick. I don't know, what, 250 units in 3 years? So
that's a pretty hefty growth.
We sold 600.
There were 600 units, right? 250 investors, 250 franchisees.
Open, yeah.
Jeez. What an amazing amount of growth. So from your view, what are your thoughts about, and I know a lot of it has to do, I don't know, but what do you hope happens, I guess, or what are you preparing for it to happen?
Well, I think franchisors as a whole have a responsibility first and foremost to their existing franchisees. And you might say, well, Dave, that's real easy for you to say now that you've got 350 franchisees and 600 sold. Right. But I think even if you're a smaller franchisor with 30 to 50, you have to redouble your efforts on supporting your franchisees first. And it has to be a sincere, honest, 100% effort in that department, or the future of your franchise is in peril. Mm-hmm. That said, I'm not going to forego new opportunities with new franchisees. Obviously, the long-term growth of our company depends on, filling out those markets, right? And so, I think you have to be, in order to do that, I think you have to look at your preconceived notions and kind of the things you held close to your vest about what your brand is and how your brand has to grow before. You got to just go back to the drawing board and say, what is the best way for us to continue our growth strategy without negatively affecting our existing franchisees, and potentially opening up new opportunities that you never even thought of. The studio deal was not something I would have done pre-COVID. We actually thought about it 2 years ago and decided not to do it. Wow. But now it actually makes a lot more sense. We can't go into Lufkin, Texas very easily with a center. We can't go into a very small town outside of the suburbs very easily before with a center because the demographics just didn't make sense. Now we've made a model change and a new product basically to the market so that we could reach that last mile. And I think that's
awesome.
that's a smart way to think about it, especially going into and going into this next year of franchise development. Whatever you do, don't undermine the promises of success that you did for your existing franchisees. I think that's super important. We could have said, oh, well, we don't have a studio or a center here, but just put one on the map, dotted next to it. But, with the lower expenses and lower costs next to a really high expense and high cost center, the studios would have won out on a price war, and we didn't want to cannibalize our existing customer base just to grow our unit numbers,
Right.
So
That's great. That's what we call servant leadership. And in my book, Franchise Bible, we talk about the upside down pyramid, which is putting your franchise owners first. And it sounds like you've adopted that philosophy all the way through.
Yeah, definitely so. It's definitely, we started out, we didn't want to be Zeus on Olympus, throwing down edicts and commands. We wanted to be shoulder to shoulder with our franchisees and help them along the path. And I think we do a pretty damn good job of it most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. I mean, you're not going to get that kind of growth without really strong validation from your franchise owners. So obviously you guys are doing a great job with that. But we're hearing some common threads, right, Rob? I mean, we're hearing a lot of what we've heard from some of the other franchisors, which is being very transparent, communicating a lot with franchisees, taking care of the existing franchisees first, and making sure they're getting through this time. And then as far as the future goes, the adaptations, some of them you're going to keep, some, like you said, you may go back and kind of revert back to the way you had it before. But a lot of these new innovations were things that you'd been thinking about, but now's a good time to implement those and try new things. And a lot of the franchise concepts we've talked to have some really neat new innovations that have come to the surface faster and now are going to be part of their franchise brands forever. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and when I think of franchising, we talk about it all the time. We're obviously huge believers in the concept of it. And, when I think about the current situation in our country with so many people looking for something else, a next step, another alternative to the job market, it's great to hear people like David, because that is the economic driver of the future, is these brands, these networks, these really strong networks can offer people opportunity, right? Where they don't have it right now. So that's encouraging to me that everybody is in this industry standing strong and supporting their network. So that's
true. Very true. Well, David, do you have a favorite real world customer story you could share with us, like that exemplifies the franchise concept and some of the innovation that you've been going through?
Well, some of our franchisees especially going into COVID, we're having some mixed results with more traditional advertising, especially the event-based and things like that. When everything got canceled, you gotta figure out a new way to do your math there on your acquisitions and stuff. And so what we did, and we still feel, is that the digital marketing approach was really the best way to go. Because not only is it a lower cost of acquisition, but also because that's where more moms were putting their eyeballs, right? You got more time during the day now, well, maybe, presumably, to be on Facebook or be online and see your ads, and that opportunity is greater. But instead of simply just saying, everybody's required to do another $1,000 in ad spend a month to grow out of this, we really put our money where our mouth is, and the support team stepped up and our marketing team stepped up and put our own budget together and did the largest international marketing campaign we've ever done. Direct advertising directly in the markets for our franchisees. And you might have seen something about it if you did a little bit of lookup, but it's basically giving away 100 camps internationally. So far, that program has come together and brought in almost 6,000 leads in the first week, and which was leads they wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think that's a good example of how being in a franchise and building a brand together When you do that, a rising tide lifts all boats, and we like to be that tide.
Wow, that's an amazing story. We've heard of franchisors giving their franchisees kind of relief on royalties and things like that, but it's refreshing to see, because from you talking about putting money in their pocket, I mean, nothing drives recovery better than driving cash flow. So that's
right.
That's wonderful.
And we did do a little bit of forgiveness here and there, especially for struggling centers. If we could help out, we did.
Yeah.
But we also feel like the product that we're offering, luckily, very fortunately, still has a viable virtual marketplace for it, especially almost during this time.
Yeah.
Because kids are sitting at home with nothing better to do and parents want to get them engaged. So we really thought, okay, get them fundamentally okay with the shift in premise from a brick and mortar to a virtual environment, train them, understand how to do it, let them practice it a little bit, and then come out strong with a really hard back to business approach in our marketing campaigns and efforts globally. So,
yeah, that's a big advantage of your model, because a lot, like you said, your model kind of lends itself to that, where like the restaurants, for instance, couldn't do that shift as well. A lot
not
of
as
them
easily, for sure. Yeah. The delivery guys and all that, a little logistically.
Yeah, it's a different product.
Yeah.
Yep. No doubt. That's something that, and in the demand for what you do, we talked about earlier, and where the world's going and the purpose of it behind helping kids think. And it's just, that's what we need. We need the younger generation to be the leaders of the future and be ready for all this constant change. And I think this is just the beginning of what will be constant change. And it could be very positive changes, but just change. So it's good to hear. As we wrap up the show, David, I know we shared a lot of great things right now. Is there one, though, that you wanted to elaborate, a tip or a concept or a philosophy you have that you really just want to leave with our audience? And again, there's franchisees, business owners, maybe other brands, maybe people seeking a franchise. Is there any advice or any tips you would want to leave with our audience?
Yeah, my dad told me a long time ago, and it's a good bit of advice. He said, if it was easy, everybody'd do it, and it wouldn't be worth anything. And I think that applies to franchising, whether you're the franchisor or the franchisee. If it was just going to be a walk in the park, and we make it as easy as possible, of course, but if it was going to be a walk in the park, nobody would pay you to do it. They would just do it themselves, right? And so understand that we're always going to be facing challenges. It's easy to get upset and stay frustrated, but cooler heads will prevail. Make your mistakes. Say you're sorry where you need to. Pick yourself back up and get back to work. Ultimately, it's the only way to succeed.
Well,
that's brilliant. It sounds like your dad is a wise man. That's important. My dad gave me some tips that I still use today as well.
That's right.
That's wonderful. Well, and I'm going to come back to you guys just in a second to kind of see if there's any final thoughts or any things you want to share. But David, while we're on the subject of growing your brand and everything, what's a good website that folks can look at if they're interested in learning more about Code Ninjas?
Yep, codeninjas.com.
Wow, that's nice and easy to remember. Perfect. And folks, we'll put Code Ninjas logo on our Fight for Your Franchise Challenge Wall of Fame as well. And you can click right on the link and it'll take you right to their franchise page. So that's another way to get there. But go to codeninjas.com if you want to learn more, see if there's territories available in your area. But folks, we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up the show here. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're at the tail end of the Fight for Your Franchise Challenge. When we started this about 3 months ago, we started it just to come up with a way to help our franchisors and franchisees around the world get through this time. And being that we're Franchise Bible Coach, and that's kind of in our wheelhouse, we've been coaching franchisors and franchisees for decades. We thought, well, sometimes as a business owner, you just need a coach in your corner. And so we've been helping out with franchisors and franchisees over the last several months by offering some free video coaching and some articles and some podcasts, and just bringing in experts like David and other franchisor and franchisee experts and consultants, and just bringing resources to bear so that you had everything at your fingertips to get through this time, not only survive, but to thrive as a business owner. And the great news is we've had a lot of great stories of folks that have come through and kept fighting the good fight and are coming through this thing. And I know we're not out of the weeds yet, but we're certainly getting there. And a couple exciting things to let you know about. We've had some folks ask us, how do we stay involved with Franchise Bible Coach? One is to participate in our free community, which is easy to find on our website. You can just join our Facebook group, and that's franchisors and franchise owners that can participate, ask questions, and our coaches participate as well. If you want to get a Franchise Bible Coach of your own, the easiest way to start with us is to join our membership. And now the memberships are available. We're offering a 50% discount for a period of time here to get started. So it's really affordable, and you can have access to our monthly group coaching. We're going to have 2 different groups, one for franchisors, one for franchisees. And so we can offer some resources and ideas there and answer questions and help there. And then we also have my free video coaching, monthly video coaching that goes along with our franchise success plan. So we'll be focusing on different topics throughout the year to kind of help you focus. And those could be marketing, or it could be technology. And it just gives you kind of a high level best practices in industry, best practices and proprietary strategies that we throw into the mix to help you succeed and grow as a franchise professional. And then, of course, discounts on other courses and things that we offer, as well as some of the other options that you might look at. So, folks, participate if you like on that level. You can find us at franchisebiblecoach.com, and we have an exciting live event with entrepreneur.com coming up on Monday, the 29th, and then we have a financial guru that's just amazing. That's going to be talking about the economy and the future of franchising and the future of business, and also a really amazing franchisor that's going to be sharing some thoughts and ideas there. So join us on that one. But I'm going to go back to Rob and David, see if you have any final thoughts before we wrap up the show. So, Rob?
Yeah, well, again, technology is a passion for me. And I was sharing with David earlier that I think most of the largest companies in our economy now are technology driven, and David and his network are training up our kids to be ready for these new jobs that don't exist yet,
Yes.
and getting them ready to think. So I think that's amazing. It was great to have you. Thanks, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And just so you know, we're now a full family coding center. So with Code Ninjas Pro and Code Ninjas Junior, 5 to 105 years old. So go ahead, and if you'd like to take part in some of those and you'd like to learn yourself, now's the best time to do it. So.
Got it. Nice.
Oh, perfect. Well, that sounds like a great program, and much success to you. And again, folks, if you want to get a hold of them and learn more about Code Ninjas, just go to codeninjas.com or click on the logo on our website. And once again, folks, keep fighting the good fight. We'll be here if you need us, and just go to franchisebiblecoach.com to learn more. And we'll see you on the inside. I'm Rick Grossman signing off for Franchise Bible Coach Radio Podcast with Rick and Rob. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.